Hello YouTube, it's finally February, yay, Black History Month. So I'm gonna put some gems in, and today we're gonna be talking about Sojourner Truth. Now briefly I want to talk about Dr. King, and it's so many things that he did that people don't know about. So one of the things he did is he is the reason why the teachers have a union. He is the reason why the teachers have AUFT. In the 1960s, for those of you who have parents, grandparents, the 1960s, there was a time when the teachers went on strike. And they went on this strike because they was told by Dr. King, if you want more money, go on strike. Like, your man was ahead of his time, and he was a very powerful man, and a lot of people listened to him and his wisdom. Also, we all could agree that sanitation makes money, right? It's because of your man, Dr. King. And I noticed from going to a museum, it's the New York Museum, and he's displayed there. And it was very interesting to find out that knowledge about him, because when we hear about Dr. King, we hear about the speech that he did, the civil rights, but he was just, it's so much he did. And at my big age, I had just learned that 2 years ago, so I was 33, just learning that he is the reason for 1199, which is a union. He is the reason for the teachers union. He is the reason for so many things. He also stood for women's rights, not just civil rights. So you know, he did a lot of things. So I just wanted to spread that knowledge really quickly. Today I will be reading from this book. It's called Dangerous Prayers, 50 Powerful Prayers, and we're going to be talking about Sojourner Truth, because I feel like that's a person that people don't really know about. So briefly, I'm just going to read about her, and yeah. Sojourner Truth was born in 1797 and she died in 1883. She lived a really long time, almost 100 years. She was born a slave, and her original name was Isabella Baumfree in southeastern New York. So it doesn't say what part of New York, but the girl was from New York. During her early years, she was subjected to several slave owners, many of whom were cruel. So we all know that, yes, slavery back then, you know, they try to make up stories, but the truth of the matter is they were treated very poorly. They were beaten, often raped. A lot was going on. When Truth turned 13, she was bought by John Dumont and worked for him for 17 years before escaping to the home of Isaac and Maria Van Wagner. Truth later said God had revealed them to her in a vision. The Quaker couple purchased Truth from Dumont and then freed her. So Quaker oats, I know you guys are familiar with the oatmeal, but they were actually abolitionists, right? There's a whole history with the Quakers, that how they actually helped free the slaves. And you actually had more white abolitionists than you did black, okay? The history behind that, a lot of our own people sold us into slavery, right? And we know this to be a fact because we had our own selves in slavery. The Egyptians had the Jews in slavery for 400 years, and the original Jews were black. So that's all the receipts I need right there, that we sell each other out, right? And just in general right now, you know, you have people that just, they'll rat you out and try to get you out of a job, and they look just like you. And a lot of, even with the police brutality, you always see somebody that look like you that's participating in the tomfoolery, you know. But a fresh start warranted a new name, and she prayed God would provide one. She said that God showed her in a vision that her new name was Sojourner because of the traveling she would do as a speaker, and that she was to declare truth to the people. Truth became an abolitionist and traveled throughout the Northeast, attending local prayer meetings and organized meetings of her own. She spoke against the evils of slavery and behalf of women's rights. That's another thing I wanted to mention. So yes, slavery was going on, but at the same time, remember, women did not have our rights. And another thing that people don't realize is even something as simple as when you get married and you have your husband's last name. We used to be property. So the same way that a slave was your property, a woman was your property too. And for me personally, I do want a husband, but I'm skeptical about taking his last name because there's a history behind that. Also, he who giveth this bride away. Why do they say that at weddings? Is because, right, you were your father's property before you were married in this country. I'm not talking about any other country. Before you were married, folks, you were your father's property, right? And let me back it up. If you want some Bible in there, Abraham, if I'm not mistaken, was the man who worked for somebody for 7 years for someone's father to get somebody's hand in marriage. It did not say that he proposed. It said that it was between the father and him. They had a conversation, and the father said, since you are broke, you have to work for me for 7 years. So in the church we like, oh, that's so romantic. No, that woman, I believe it was Sarah, if I'm not mistaken, she was property. He didn't ask her to marry him. He went to her father, and that's how it was back then. And so when people have this tradition, you better check out tradition, that, oh, you're supposed to ask the father's hand for marriage. No, that's because back then we had no voice as women. We had no rights. So tradition, the reason why tradition, folks, you had to ask the father, because the father owned his daughter. We were property. So you went from your father's house to your husband's house. And this is why till this day, nobody thinks about that. But, stop and think. Even right now, I have my father's last name, right? And then my mother, her maiden name is from her father, and so on and so on. And even women who keep their name, that name is from a man. Somehow or another, we don't have our own last name. Right now in 2025, y'all, we don't have our own last name as women. So, with I have my last name, I have mixed emotions about my last name because it's very original. But at the same time, it's like, if I get married, I'll be taking on my husband's last name. But I'm not, the way I see it is, I'm not your property, I'm your partner. So why do I need your last name? Right? And then when you tell people, oh, he could have your last name, they say, oh, that's not unnatural, right? But I just had to let y'all know on the scoop, like, all these traditions that we do, it's all about control. Even walking down the aisle, your father walking you down the aisle, it's because he is giving you away to the next property owner. That's all that signifies. There's nothing special about that. I always said, if I get married, my father's a musician, so I'm walking down the aisle by myself because he's going to be playing the piano, period. My father is the best keyboard artist that I know. I'm not just saying that because he's my father, but your dude is cool. He gonna be playing the music, so he can't walk me down the aisle. I'm walking down the aisle by myself, okay? Just like Sound of Music, right? She walked down the aisle. That's like my favorite wedding scene ever. When Sound of Music, when Maria and they singing, how do you solve a problem? She's walking down the aisle, and I feel like that signifies something because it's like she struggled on her own. She worked. She was a nanny, and you know what? She's getting married and she's walking to her man. She don't need no help. I don't need no help. Okay? I've been single woman. I take care of myself and my son. Lived on my own since 22. I deserve to walk down the aisle by myself. No disrespect to my dad, but that's just me. So yeah, that's just something to think about, y'all. You know, like the last name that you have belongs to a man. The whole tradition, or even when it's like, oh, the wife side of the family is supposed to pay for the wedding, because we were property back then. And so the father's family, because she was property, right? It's property to property owner giving it up to another property. And the color white signifies purity. You're supposed to be a virgin when you get married, right? I don't like the color white. I really don't. You know, it's nothing personal, whatever. I don't like the color white. So I will not be wearing white on my wedding. There's so many traditions that I don't agree with. You know, another thing is your mother's supposed to help you get ready. I don't believe that. I feel like it should be an older woman in the family who knows how to apply makeup, who knows how to be feminine. You know, if you have a mom that's not really feminine, why is she helping you to get ready for your wedding? It's so many things, traditions that we need to throw out the window. But I digress. I just had to speak on women's rights, but I can. And for the month of March, I definitely will be talking about a woman, and just, yeah, I think I'm gonna do that on a daily basis, every day with a different. I need to let y'all know how powerful we are, like. But this is Black History Month, though. In 1850, with the help of Olive Gilbert, she published her autobiography. The book brought her both fame and harassment, following a physical attack from a violent mob. She walked with a cane for the rest of her life. By the time the Civil War ended, Truth had made numerous speeches on behalf of minorities and women, met with Abe Lincoln, called on to the government to make Western lands available to freed African Americans, and suffocated a dislocated arm at the hands of a racist streetcar conductor. So back during that time, you had to sit at a certain part of a train, and some trains didn't allow color folks, you know, so that's unfortunate that happened to her. But she settled in Battle Creek, Michigan, and made it her home until her death. And this is her prayer. Oh God, you know how much I am distressed, for I have told you again and again. Now God, help me get my son. If you were in trouble as I am, and I could help you as you can me, think I wouldn't do it? Yes, God, you know I would do it. Oh God, you know I have no money, but you can make the people do for me, and you must make the people do for me. I will never give you peace till you do, God. Oh God, make the people hear me. Don't let them turn me off without hearing and helping me. Now, that's not the prayer I would pray. The prayer that I would pray is, Lord, give me money so I don't need people, right? But to each their own. That is the prayer that was in her heart and that she said. And that is the story of Sojourner Truth. Every week I'll be doing a different person who I feel like people don't really know about. Yeah, those are my thoughts.